Kathy Griffin is in the news right now, keeps popping up on Facebook and other forms of social media. And one of the biggest arguments, gripes, or complaints about the whole situation is that what she's done is offensive and inappropriate. And I couldn't agree more. But that's entirely her job. As a comedian, it is her job to be offensive and inappropriate. Now, some people would say that she's not funny and that what she's doing isn't funny, and maybe it's not. And maybe that's not the point. But at the same time, what she's done is not in any way illegal. What she's done is technically art. Now, you could say, this isn't art, because art makes one think. Now, see, the problem is, if you think you understand art by saying something else isn't, in a way you're wrong. Art is just art. Art is, in my opinion, defined by the artist, and everything else is interpretation. So you're interpreting Kathy Griffin's decapitation of this effigy of Trump as whatever it is that you're thinking it is. The reality is, it's effectively an artwork piece. Now, she's apologized for it. I don't understand why, other than the fact that maybe she's getting a lot of hate mail and probably people doxing her because they're assholes and they can't understand that this is what society does. This is what certain people do. And they can't grasp this fact and maybe even just ignore her. Instead, they have to feel like they're being offended by this circumstance has to be validated in every single possible way. What she has done, interestingly enough, has created a dialogue. And that's exactly what art does. That's what comedy does. Again, it may not be comedic, but she doesn't have to be comedic all the damn time. You don't walk up to a comedian and say, hey, tell a joke. Unless you're one of those assholes who does that. That's not the life of what a comedian should be. Comedians often push boundaries, and sometimes they push them further than they should. One artist that has pushed the boundaries throughout their entire life, or at least longer than I've been alive, Marina Abramovic. I may have pronounced her name wrong. Sorry if I did. She pushes the boundary of art all the time with her art installations. She did one back in the 70s where she was just there, and she had on tables tons of different items, and people could do with them whatever they wanted. These tables, by the way, included a gun and a bullet. And apparently at one point during this art installation, one of the visitors got the gun, put the bullet in it, chambered it, pointed it at her, and even cocked it. Never pulled the trigger, of course, because she's still alive. She did another art installation where basically she just sat there. And people could come by and sit out in front of her and then just have a staring contest, essentially, without, losing blinking. But if you ever speak, you lose. And supposedly one of her former lovers showed up, and she got all emotional, but she still didn't speak. Because she was having some kind of message. And you don't have to know what the message is. I'm not pretentious enough to know what the message of each art piece is, but I think I'm aware enough to know that something can be art. Kathy Griffin didn't actually decapitate somebody. She effectively decapitated a mannequin that looked like a person. There are people saying, if somebody did this during Obama's presidency, everybody would lose their shit. Well, supposedly Ted Nugent did this, and I guess people lost their shit. I don't know. Also, part of it is we tend to live in our own little circle jerky worlds. So sometimes the things that we see are not really as important as those who talk about them make them out to be. Of course, this has spurred controversy, and because of this, again, dialogue. And that is, for all intents and purposes, what art does. Art causes people to talk about stuff, to talk about life and society, and what it is that we find to be appropriate or inappropriate. Because if everything that we did was, hey, let's just not stir the pot, well, why aren't we just replaced by Stepford wives or something? If you feel that you must condemn Kathy Griffin, you have the right to speak that out and say what you want. But at the same time, you're kind of being a dumbass too. Instead, use your brain. Stop reacting to your feelings about these circumstances that are the world around us. Think about it. Stop. Make an informed decision. Be logical. Be a critical thinker. Try to understand why people do these things. And maybe just brush it off, too. It's not like she did anything to you.